Today, I'm gonna give you my top 10 resources for all things health and nutrition and all things business and entrepreneurship. So I had somebody write in to me and ask me for some book recommendations. I actually had them ask me for book recommendations in regards to health and fitness advice, and then also in regards to business and entrepreneurship. I thought, well, you know what, that's actually a very cool idea for a video. Now, if you're not interested in learning about the health books, then you can skip to the middle of this video where we'll be talking about the books on business and entrepreneurship. So let's start with my top 5 books on anything regarding health, fitness, and nutrition. For me personally, number 1 is The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson. This book will completely change the way you perceive diets, gaining body fat, exercise. It's a very, very all-encompassing literal blueprint on how to change your life for the better health-wise, but in a very easy to follow and practical way that is in line and in sync with our DNA. It's in sync with our evolution. The Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson, fantastic place to start for anyone looking to improve their health. Now, for those of you who might be suffering from something like brain fog or a lack of concentration, or you don't quite feel as sharp as you used to, your memory might be fading and slipping a little bit, well, there's an amazing book called The Ultramind Solution by Dr. Mark Hyman. I highly recommend this book. It will revolutionize the way you look at illnesses, particularly mental illnesses. Now, Mark Hyman is a practitioner of what's known as functional medicine. Now, functional medicine aims to look for the root cause of an actual problem and treat that first and foremost so you can affect the upchain symptoms of it, rather than like modern medicine tends to do, which is prescribe you a pill or something to treat the symptom of a problem. The Ultramind Solution is a great introduction to functional medicine. Going along the same functional medicine route is another one of my favorite books by Chris Kresser, and it's called Unconventional Medicine. He breaks down the entire American healthcare system and exactly why it is absolutely backwards and broken and busted. He breaks down the incentive structures that are basically underlying all of modern medicine. You know, why Americans get prescribed so many medications, why insurance is such a big deal in America, why it has to be like intertwined in all of your medicine here, and why things are so damn expensive, and why doctors are incentivized in the wrong direction. They're incentivized to get you hooked on painkillers and prescriptions and rack up your hospital bills rather than actually treating it. The next book is one you've probably heard me mention a dozen times on this channel, and that is Estrogeneration by Anthony J. If you're a man in today's day and age, you need to read this book. Estrogeneration breaks down and explains all of the reasons why male testosterone levels are tanking. It exposes all of the ways that we are ingesting basically estrogen mimicking compounds in our day-to-day lives in modern society, through the tap water, through the foods we eat, through the bottles and containers we eat out of, all kinds of things. It's a bit of a black pill, but at the very, very end of the book, he does offer solutions for fixing these problems. And the next book in regards to health I want to recommend to you is Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston A. Price. Now, he is a dentist, and he went around the world studying native tribes and comparing their dental records and their teeth basically to those of the average, Westerner. And he found that they didn't really have any problems with things like wisdom tooth and, tooth decay and jaw structure, and they don't need braces and Invisalign, all these kind of things. He gives a very, very good breakdown of why Westerners have such bad dental hygiene and bad teeth. A lot of it is down to malnutrition in early developmental stages of childhood. Very, very interesting book, and a good primer, I think, for anyone who has kids or is going to have kids. Read that book first so you have an understanding of how you can better feed your family to ensure that they are, getting the best start in life they could possibly get health-wise. Now, here are some of my favorite books in regards to business, entrepreneurship, marketing, sales, just making money in general. First one is Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. This is a very, very old book. If you want to get a physical copy of it, I think it costs something like $400. It's not in print anymore. You can get free PDFs on the internet though. Eugene Schwartz Breakthrough Advertising is like the Rosetta Stone, like the Bible of copywriting. First of all, he breaks down the concept of copywriting from a very unique perspective, because this book was written during the period where cigarette advertising was allowed, and he details like the evolution of branding and marketing through like a particular niche. And so he uses cigarettes as a really interesting example of how cigarette advertising evolved from just like, here's a cigarette, to like, now they're flavored, now they're this way, then there's cigarettes for women, there's cigarettes for these people. And as well, he underlies all the basic powerful concepts of copywriting. So, and I'm not a copywriter, just understanding all of this knowledge in regards to copywriting allows me to find good copywriters to hire when I need them. It allows me to assess copy I've had written for sales pages and things, or for video sales letters. It allows me to have a very, very good understanding of when I'm being sold to, when people are trying to use copywriting techniques on me to sell to me. It has so many uses outside of just being a copywriter. The next book is called The E-Myth Revisited, and that's written by Michael E. Gerber. It's such a good book because it breaks down the three kind of key hats that people wear in a business. One is the technician, one is like the manager, and one is the entrepreneur. People tend to start a business and they employ themselves, and at the start you have to wear all these hats. You have to be the technician who does the actual work, the manager who takes care of the logistics and the books and the staff and all that kind of stuff, and then the entrepreneur whose job is to break new ground and be creative and find new ideas and new creative ways of making money. But then eventually, as the business grows, you have to try and fire yourself from each respective role that you are not the best at. It really made a big impact on my journey through business. I know my good friend Justin Waller, he highly recommends this book a lot, so you should definitely go check it out. The next one is The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing is a very, very easy book to read, and it's kind of quick and bullet point. Those 22 points in that book are very, very tried and tested and true to this day as it was when it was written. Highly recommend that to give you a good baseline understanding in general of how to market a business. The next one is by a guy called Ryan Holiday, and it is a book called Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator. Now this is such an interesting read. It gives you a very good understanding of how blogs work, how journalists work, and the age we live in now, which is kind of like clickbaity, and it's like their pay and their employment is based upon just views and traffic, right? Ryan Holiday, he basically goes over a couple of examples from jobs he's had where he's been able to manipulate journalists to talk about his products and his brands. And it's very, very powerful because I've used this exact same technique from getting published in, big newspapers across the other side of the planet to getting cast in movies in my previous profession as well. The same technique you can apply to damn near anything. It's actually very, very effective. This next book by Carrie Patterson is Crucial Conversations. And this was a book I really needed as a young entrepreneur. And it's about having, like I said, those crucial conversations where if you're a guy who's kind of a bit too agreeable, you don't like conflict too much, you don't like having arguments and things like this book for me was fantastic in learning how to, I guess, go against my nature to a degree, learning how to put your foot down in arguments when it's really, really important, and taking emotion out of things for yourself and the person you're negotiating with. It's a really great starting point, I think, for anyone who's new to negotiation meetings and new to having a business partner. Now, I've got some honorable mentions, which are not books necessarily on business or on health or anything, but they're just books that I think every guy should read because they offer a very, very unique insight into a different aspect of the way the world works. The first one is The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, not to be confused with The Art of War. The War of Art is a very, very small book, short, straight to the point, very concise. It covers a very, very important point, and that is the point of resistance, and that is in business or in self-improvement or just in your life in general. The thing that that you are often resisting the most, the thing that's on your to-do list that you keep putting off again and again and again, is probably the thing that is the most important for you to be doing. It's probably the thing that should be the number one priority. And he teaches you to use that concept of resistance towards something as a bit of a compass for deciding priorities. The next book is by G. Edward Griffin, and it is called The Creature from Jekyll Island. If you are at all curious about how screwed up the monetary system is right now, or how it got that way in the first place, The Creature from Jekyll Island explains the creation of the Federal Reserve in the USA. It explains the history of banking, the history of money, the history of war, which is very, very heavily intertwined into that. It talks about money as a whole, as a general concept, and explains very, very well what money actually is and the different types of money that we've had through our civilization. Very, very eye-opening on a lot of different topics. Some say it's a bit controversial. Controversial ideas need to be discussed and read. One of my all-time favorite books as well is called Meditations, and that is by Marcus Aurelius. For those of you who don't know, Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic. He was the Caesar of Rome, the most powerful man on the planet, and he practiced Stoicism. It's a very, very humbling read when you see the most powerful man at that point in history on Earth talking about the way he's perceiving the world as a Stoic. I'd actually recommend you listen to this book as an audiobook because of the way it's written and the language that it's used. I actually found it much easier to digest as an audiobook than trying to sit down and read it. It would give you a very, very, very solid foundation in stoicism, stoic thinking, and having control over your emotions as a man. Now, this last one is a book I actually can't remember which one it is, unfortunately. So there's two books I'm going to recommend right now, and they basically talk about a similar thing. There's one book I've read which I was like, that is the best book I've ever read explaining how to get good at something, or how people become experts or masters at a craft or a sport or a talent, right? One is Mastery by Robert Greene. I don't think it's that one, but it might be. I think, however, the book I'm thinking of is The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. They're both actually good books, but I'm pretty sure The Talent Code is the better one. If it's the book I'm remembering correctly, he talks about apprenticeship and intense focus and deliberate practice and these kind of concepts to allow someone to actually become a true master at their craft. Talent Code by Daniel Coyle will give you a blueprint basically for becoming a master at something. Now, these books give you an insight into the way the world really works, and if you want to learn insights into the way women really work, then I suggest you check out this video right over here.